It was the first day Marina decided to finally live her life. That's enough, she thought. I'm a woman, I'm only 35, and I deserve to be happy. She opened her laptop and, for the first time in 3 years, visited a travel website. She wanted to relax, just for a week, with her son, somewhere warm. Colorful travel ads filled the screen. She couldn't pick right away. She wanted everything at once. She scrolled past endless all-inclusive packages in Turkey, Egypt, and other places Russian tourists love. In the end, Marina chose Sochi, a resort town she used to visit often when she was younger. First with her girlfriends, then later with her husband and son. Her husband Boris had met her when she was just 25. He was tall, wealthy, and handsome, with a small mole under his chin. Marina had fallen for him immediately and decided to build her life with him. In the beginning, everything felt like a fairy tale. Traveling, flowers, happiness, a child. But about a year after their son Daniil was born, things began to change. Boris started coming home late. Sometimes he stayed out until midnight. His work trips got longer, often to the south. Marina tried to brush off her suspicions about another woman. But the signs were there. Boris gave vague excuses and avoided serious conversations. He denied everything. Still, Marina loved him. She begged him to be home more, at least for their son. But Boris didn't spend much time with Daniil either. He just gave Marina money and often disappeared. One day he left again. And this time he never came back. Almost every day since, Marina thought about that moment, when everything fell apart. First she cried. Later she just sat in silence, trying not to break down in front of Daniil. To her son, Boris was still on a long business trip. But yesterday Marina made a decision. No more replaying that story in her head. She remembered clearly that cold February evening. It had been 3 days since Boris was supposed to come back from a work trip to Siberia. His phone was off. No replies. Her 5-year-old son asked, "Mom, why do you look so sad?" "I'm not sad." "Then why aren't you sleeping?" he said before quietly walking back to bed. Daniil didn't really notice his father's absence. Boris had barely interacted with him, especially in the last 6 months. Marina decided to call Boris's company. He worked as a managing partner and had told her they were opening a new factory in Siberia. She managed to reach the company's director, Yuri Albertovich. She had met him a few times at company events. "Hello, Yuri Albertovich," she said nervously. "I just wanted to ask about my husband's trip. He's been gone for days and his phone's off." There was a pause. "What trip?" he asked. "Marina, we aren't opening any new plants in Irkutsk. In fact, we've never had any plans there. And Boris told me he was taking 2 weeks off. Vacation." "I don't understand what you're talking about." "Vacation," Marina whispered, then slowly hung up. She sat on the couch, covering her face with her hands. This time, Boris's lies had gone too far. Before, he would at least make up some excuse. Now he just left and turned off his phone. Marina knew she should have left him long ago. Maybe from the first signs of cheating. But she had stayed. For Daniil's sake. Boris could provide for them, money, school, travel. If she left, she'd have to raise her son alone and work full-time. She didn't know if she could manage. But deep down, that wasn't the only reason she had stayed. She still loved him. Even after everything. Now she realized she had to break free. She had to stop humiliating herself. Other women raised kids on their own, sometimes more than one. Marina could do it too. She just had to believe it. Suddenly her phone rang. It was Yuri Albertovich again. "Marina, it's me. After our call, someone came into my office. They said Boris really is in Siberia, but not for work," he said, his voice nervous. "Maybe I should come over and explain in person." She agreed. She quickly tidied up and waited. His office was just 10 minutes away. Soon the doorbell rang. They sat together in silence. He seemed unsure how to begin. Finally he spoke. "Marina, Boris went to Irkutsk, to Lake Baikal. He and his friends go there to ride snowmobiles on the ice. Marina was shocked. She had never heard about this part of Boris's life. But that's not the main thing, the director said. Right after your call we got more news. There's been a warm spell there. Dangerous now. Snowmobiles are banned in that weather. But Boris still went onto the ice. And he fell through. Marina went pale. Do you need an ambulance? Yuri asked, frightened. No, she whispered. He's dead, isn't he? It didn't happen on the lake itself, more like a nearby river, Yuri said gently. There's a strong current. The rescue team hasn't found the body yet, but they say there's no chance he survived. Marina felt like someone had hit her in the head. Just 15 minutes ago she was furious at Boris. She had finally made up her mind. She was going to leave him. And now she finds out he's dead. She stared blankly into space, like she was watching an old silent movie. Scenes from their life together flashed through her mind. Yuri Albertovich quietly went to the kitchen and brought her a glass of water. He spoke gently, trying to calm her. I promise, Marina, he said. The company will help you with the inheritance and all the legal stuff. But how? She asked. They never found his body. What if he's still alive? It's possible to declare someone dead even if the body hasn't been found, he explained. I understand it's hard to accept, but they're sure. The rescuers told us, there's no chance he survived. I'm so sorry. But Marina wasn't listening anymore. Tears ran down her face. She couldn't understand how she was supposed to go on living. After a while, she pulled herself together enough to walk Yuri to the door. Then she sat down in the kitchen. Mom, why are you crying? Marina didn't hear her son Daniil come in. I'm not crying, she said quickly. My eyes are just watery. Why aren't you sleeping again? I heard you talking to a man. That was someone from Dad's work, she replied. Where's Dad? Marina froze. She didn't know what to say. She couldn't bring herself to tell her 5-year-old son that his father had died. And she didn't want to lie and say he went to heaven either. So she decided to delay the truth. Just a little longer. Dad went on a trip again, she said softly. But this time, he'll be gone a bit longer than usual. What's he doing there? Daniil asked. He wasn't in that age where kids constantly ask questions. But this time it was hard for Marina to answer. He's out discovering new places, mountains, lakes, seas. He's working and traveling, she said. I want to discover new places too, Daniil said. When you grow up, you'll discover whatever you want. But for now you need sleep. People grow the most when they sleep. So the sooner you go to bed, the faster you'll grow. Daniil smiled and started walking to the door. But then he stopped, turned around, and asked a question he had never asked during any of Boris's past business trips. When is Daddy coming back? I don't know, Marina whispered, holding back her tears. It's a long trip. He's working on something really hard. You can't discover a whole new world in just 1 week, right? Daniil nodded quietly and went to his room. For the first time in years, Marina was slightly relieved that Boris had barely spent time with their son. If Boris had been a loving, present father, Marina had no idea how she would have explained his death. Now maybe, just maybe, Daniil would slowly forget. Of course one day when he was older, she'd have to tell him the truth. But not now. For now, Marina's focus was on protecting her little boy's heart. But what about her own heart? Boris's cheating. His secret life. None of that made his death any easier. Even though she had known for a while that she still loved him. Now that feeling was stronger than ever. She was stuck in an emotional trap. When she was angry and ready to leave him, her love had been buried under her frustration and pain. But now that he was gone, she couldn't be angry anymore. Felt wrong to hate someone who had died. All the betrayals seemed to fade from her memory. Only the good times came back. Especially the early years, the happiest years. Marina stood up and went to the shelf. She pulled down the family photo album. Flipping through the pages, she stopped at a photo of her and Boris on a snowmobile, somewhere in the Caucasus Mountains. Back then Boris took her everywhere. On business trips, vacations, even snowmobile rides. He was a pro. He could ride one with his eyes closed. Marina wiped her tears, confused. How could someone like him let something like this happen? Didn't make sense. This isn't like him, she said out loud. No, not Boris. We have to wait. They have to find the body. I just can't believe it's true. She slammed the photo album shut. She had only just begun to calm down, but the grief returned in a wave. She wanted to scream, to run somewhere, to call someone and make them keep searching. Her hand hovered over her phone. She thought about calling Yuri Albertovich again. But she stopped herself. Just in time. Marina knew that nothing she said would change how the search was going. No one would believe her if she said Boris couldn't have died like that. He was too skilled with snowmobiles. But still, it all sounded so senseless. She pulled herself together and sat back down on the sofa. Her mind went blank. She didn't want to think anymore. She just wanted to fall asleep and wake up to the same old routine, seeing Boris rushing off to work, disappearing again for a few days like he used to. She took some valerian drops to calm down and lay in bed. But sleep wouldn't come. She tossed and turned, repeating the same words to herself over and over. Hope and wait. Hope and wait. She wasn't ready to say goodbye to Boris. Not forever. Letting him go from the marriage. Maybe. But letting him go from life itself. She wasn't ready for that. Eventually, the valerian worked, and she drifted off. As days passed, those words, hope and wait, started fading from her mind. Boris was officially declared dead, even though his body was never found. Yuri Albertovich kept his promise. He helped her with the inheritance, gave financial support, and even arranged a remote job for her at the company. Marina learned how to balance being a mom and earning a living. But she couldn't let go of Boris. For the next 3 years, she lived in quiet mourning. She didn't go out for fun, didn't rest, didn't enjoy anything. She only smiled when she was with her son. He had become the only reason she kept going. Then one day she saw a cheerful ad on a travel website. A smiling woman held tickets in one hand and a sign in the other that said, "Happy vacation for the whole family." Marina sighed deeply and clicked buy. "Dania," she said after booking the trip, "we're going to Sochi next week. Just the two of us. 7 days." It wasn't about the luggage or the trip itself. It was about accepting her new life. Not as a grieving widow who was lied to for years and then left alone, but as a woman ready to start over and live again. Time passed quickly, and soon it was the day of their flight. They arrived at the airport. Marina sat down in the waiting area. She hadn't been to the airport since 5 years ago, when she and Boris sent their son to his grandmother and went on a vacation to Turkey together. Memories tried to come back, but Marina pushed them away. She took Dania's hand, and they walked through the stream of travelers toward the boarding gate. Near the gate, it was quieter. They sat down to wait. Marina looked around. Most people were in good spirits, probably also heading off on vacation. A group of young people were laughing at something on a phone. 2 older women were reading newspapers from the airport racks. A couple sat a few rows away. A young blonde woman about 25, and a man wearing a wide-brimmed hat and sunglasses. Marina couldn't see the man's face. He was turned toward the girl and had his head slightly tilted. He seemed to be talking excitedly, but the girl just stared at her phone, not really listening. Marina stopped watching them and picked up her phone. 15 minutes later, boarding was announced. Marina and Dania got to their seats. He sat by the window and she sat beside him. "Dania, this is your first flight where you'll remember everything," she said, smiling. "This is so cool, Mom. I'm glad we're flying together. You probably don't remember the last time. We flew when you were just a baby," Marina said, then instantly regretted asking. The boy looked out the window, thinking, "No, I don't remember anything." Marina let out a quiet sigh of relief. She had been afraid something might trigger memories of Boris. Over the past 3 years, Daniil rarely mentioned his father. At first, he used to ask where he was. Marina would make up stories about Boris exploring new worlds, meeting strange people, getting stuck due to bad weather. But as Daniil grew, the questions stopped. For the last year and a half, he hadn't asked at all. Still, Marina stayed on edge. She knew one day a classmate might ask about his dad, and it could all come rushing back. Luckily, that never happened. Maybe it was because the other kids' moms knew what Marina was going through. Maybe they had asked their children not to bring up dads around Daniil. Either way, Marina was thankful. Maybe Marina was just lucky, but deep down she knew that one day in the next few years, she would have to sit down and have a serious talk with her son. She had even spoken to a psychologist, asking for advice on how to do it. They recommended different methods, but none of them felt right to her. "Mom, look, we're above the clouds," her son said with excitement. Marina looked at him and suddenly remembered a flight from years ago. Daniil had been just a baby then, sitting quietly in Boris's arms and staring out the window. Other kids were crying, but her son was calm. Marina had looked at them back then, feeling so happy, like they were the perfect little family. She never imagined that it would be the last flight they took together as a family. A year and a half later, she and Boris had flown again, but without Daniil. Their relationship was already starting to fall apart at that point. That vacation was meant to fix things between them, but it only made things worse. Marina sighed and asked the flight attendant for some water. She didn't want to think about Boris anymore, but her mind kept bringing up those memories. She felt upset at herself. She had promised to move on and start a new life. She sipped the water, closed her eyes, and tried to fall asleep. "Mom, I need to go to the bathroom," her son whispered, waking her. "I'll take you," she said. "Mom, I'm old enough. I'm already 8. And the flight attendant showed me where it was before we took off. If I need help, I'll ask her." "You're so smart," Marina smiled and let him go. She watched as he walked confidently to the front of the plane. A flight attendant pointed him to the restroom. Marina relaxed, watching him reach the right spot. She turned to look out the window again. The plane had already reached cruising altitude and was flying smoothly. But suddenly, a voice came through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're entering a turbulence zone. Please stay calm. Everything is under control and should stop in a minute." Before the announcement ended, the plane shook. "Daniil." Marina's heart raced. Was he okay in there? She stood up, ready to go to the bathroom. "Ma'am, please stay seated," a stewardess said quickly. "For your safety. My son is there. I need to go." "He'll be fine," the stewardess tried to reassure her. At that moment, Daniil came out of the restroom. He calmly started walking to their seats, but then suddenly froze. After a short pause, he started walking faster. As he got closer, Marina saw his face. It was pale and scared. "Mom," he whispered, his voice shaking. "Danny, what's wrong?" she asked softly. "It's just turbulence. It happens sometimes, but there's nothing to worry about." But Daniil looked at her seriously. "Mom, Dad is on the plane. He's sitting with some lady." Marina blinked. "What did you say?" "I saw him," he said quietly as he took his seat. He looked a little different. His hair was changed, but it was him. "Go check, you'll see." "Oh, sweetheart, you must be tired," she said gently. "Maybe you were dreaming. Let's lean your seat back and you can sleep." "You don't believe me." "It's not that, honey. It's just that there's so many people in the world. Sometimes someone can look a lot like someone else." "No, Mum. I know it was him," Danny said, folding his arms and staring out the window. Marina stopped trying to convince him. Inside she felt shaken too. She didn't want to admit it, but what if it really was Boris? Still, she told herself it couldn't be. Most likely, her son had just imagined it. Maybe the turbulence brought back old memories of flying with his dad. She could have just stood up and walked down the aisle to check. But something stopped her. What if Daniil was right? What if Boris really was there? Marina couldn't risk it. She stayed in her seat for the rest of the flight. She didn't even want to turn her head to the side. An hour and a half later, the plane started descending. 20 minutes later, it landed safely. Most of the passengers jumped up, pulling their bags down before the plane even stopped moving. But Marina wasn't one of them. She stayed seated with Daniil, not ready to rush into the aisle. At least not just yet. She decided to sit and wait until the door of the plane opened and most of the passengers got off. Marina stayed calm and watched people standing and leaving. Then, a man from one of the front rows stood up and reached for his things. Marina immediately understood. That's the man Daniil had mistaken for his father. And honestly, he did look a lot like Boris. His face was just a little fuller and his hair was shorter. As he reached for his bag, Marina noticed something. A mole under his chin. Her heart sank. This can't be real, she thought. It must be a dream. Just a weird coincidence. I don't want to believe it. This is crazy. Marina was shaking, but she forced herself to stay calm, for Daniil's sake. The man put on a wide hat, took the hand of a blonde woman and stood in the aisle. The hat now hid his face from Marina. People were leaving. After a few minutes, Marina told her son, "Let's wait a little longer." She waited even longer than usual so she wouldn't run into that man in the jetway. When they finally left the plane, she couldn't help but stop by the airline desk. Even though the employee was working another flight, Marina had to ask. She needed to release all that emotion. "Excuse me," she said. "Can you check if someone was on our flight?" The airline worker replied politely. "I'm sorry, but I'm checking in another flight. And even if it were possible, I can't just look into the database. It's a privacy law." "Please," Marina said, leaning closer so Daniil wouldn't hear. "I think my husband, who went missing a few years ago, was on this flight." The airline worker looked at Marina, then at Daniil. The child's worried face must have touched her heart. She hesitated, then began typing. "Name. Krasnov, Boris Lvovich." After a few seconds, the woman said, "No one with that name was on your flight. I'm very sorry. But please, don't tell anyone I checked." "Of course," Marina replied quietly, feeling embarrassed. She took Daniil's hand, and they slowly walked to baggage claim. While waiting, Marina noticed the man in the hat again. He had already picked up his suitcase and was leaving the airport with the blonde woman. Good, Marina thought. It wasn't him. I wouldn't know what to do if it was. She told herself it was just a strange coincidence. Mole. Better to forget it. Time to enjoy vacation. They got their suitcase, left the airport and took a taxi to their hotel. The room was nice and the view of the sea was beautiful. Marina stepped out onto the balcony, took a deep breath, and tried to let go of everything that had just happened. A new life is starting, she told herself. The vacation has just begun. Sun, sea, and no more unexpected meetings. She went back inside and lay down on the big bed. The first 3 days of the vacation were wonderful. The weather was perfect. The beaches had free lounge chairs. The only downside, sometimes at night you could hear someone arguing loudly in a nearby room. But it didn't stop Marina or her son from sleeping. In the evenings, Marina liked standing on the balcony, looking out at the sea. It became like a peaceful ritual for her. Watching the sunset helped her feel calm. On the evening of the 4th day, Marina went out onto the balcony again. But it was cloudy, so there was no sunset to enjoy. She was about to go back inside when she heard voices from the room below. A man and a woman were arguing on their balcony. Marina guessed they were the same couple who yelled at night. "Dasha, do you care about anything besides money?" the man asked loudly. "Of course," the girl shouted back. "But first I need to have money before I can care about anything else." Marina stayed to listen, not because she liked eavesdropping, but something caught her interest. The man's voice. It sounded familiar. "And how am I not providing for you?" the man asked. "Are you kidding me?" the girl said. "You brought me to this dump in some forgotten part of Sochi. I want Cyprus, Maldives, Bali. But Dasha, this isn't a dump. It's a 4-star hotel." The reason your old sugar daddies took you to the Maldives is because they only wanted your body. And what do you want? She shot back. I want to teach you something. Help you grow. Make you smarter. What a bore you are, she laughed. You act like an old man. I'm an old man, am I? The man said quietly. Let me tell you a secret. People don't get younger with age. The rich men who chase you now won't want you later. And what will you have left? Marina froze. That phrase. What will be left? It was Boris's favorite. He used it in every argument like a way of asking, so what happens next? No doubt now. That voice, it was him. Her husband. She couldn't believe it. He rarely raised his voice. Their own fights had always been quiet. But she knew it now. This man downstairs was Boris. The girl laughed again, saying, At 40, I'll still look better than any of your past or future girlfriends. Then she stormed inside, slamming the door. Boris, or the man who must be him, stood there for a while, then followed her in. Marina stood in shock. She needed to hear that voice one more time. Be sure. Daniil, I'll be back soon, I just need to do something, she told her son. She stepped out of the balcony and ran to the door. The elevator wasn't coming, so she ran down the stairs. She reached the floor below and walked toward the room that was directly under theirs. Forgetting all about manners or rules, Marina leaned her ear to the door. Curiosity had taken over. The couple inside the room were still arguing. And what if I just leave you right now? Go ahead, Dasha. There are plenty of rich men in Sochi, better than you. You'll regret this. I don't care anymore. Go wherever you want with whoever you want. I don't give a damn. You're a poor old man. You'll be the one crawling back, begging me to return. That's what you think. No one will come crawling after you. Oh really? Then goodbye, the girl said and stormed out. Marina quickly pressed herself against the wall so the girl wouldn't see her. The girl ran to the elevator without noticing her. What am I doing? Marina thought, embarrassed. Standing here hiding, eavesdropping. How shameful. But something inside her said it was justified. Nothing happens by accident. First the airplane, then the birthmark, and now the voice. Either she was losing her mind, or her dead husband was somehow alive and in that room. If only she had been the one imagining it, she could blame it on her emotions. But Daniil saw him too. And kids don't lie about things like that. Sure, some have imaginary friends, but Daniil wasn't like that. If he said he saw someone, then he really saw them. Marina needed air. She walked to the window at the end of the hall to calm herself. But soon the door to the room opened and the man came out. She quickly turned away, pretending to look outside. In the reflection of the window, she saw him lock the door with a keycard and head to the elevator. Marina made a fast decision. She ran to the stairs, hoping to get to the lobby before him. She did. They both reached the ground floor at the same time. She watched him from a distance. If you took away a few extra pounds and the gray hairs, he would look just like Boris. He wore a t-shirt and shorts, making it easier for her to recognize the features of her late husband. She followed him from about 10 to 15 meters away. She didn't even know why. Something inside pushed her to keep going. The man walked into the hotel bar, ordered a cocktail and sat down. Marina, caught up in the strange game of spying, fixed her hair, lifted her blouse collar and put on her sunglasses. Then she walked into the bar, lowered her voice, and ordered a mojito. She sat drinking slowly. The man drank several tequilas and more cocktails. 10 minutes passed. Then suddenly he spoke. Miss. Marina froze. He was talking to her. No one else was nearby. Why are you like this? He asked, stopping mid-sentence, looking for the right word. What? Marina replied softly. It's just, you seem a certain way. Marina smirked. Is that your way of starting a conversation? It's just, you don't know my situation but you're judging me. Marina stared at her empty glass. I can guess. You had a fight with your girlfriend. Maybe she ran off, yelled at you, said some hurtful things. And now you want someone to tell you she was wrong and you're the victim. He looked impressed. Wow, you're smart. I'm surprised. I guess female intuition is real. But I'll be honest, Marina said. I'm not going to tell you how great you are or how bad she was. Maybe she was foolish, but you're not that much smarter. Ouch. That's harsh. Sorry. I didn't mean to insult you, Marina said, surprised at herself for being so direct. No, really. What did you mean? She sighed. It was time to be honest. You men say women only want money. But no one forced you to leave mature, intelligent women for younger ones. You make that choice. And then you complain when things don't work out. He laughed softly. You've read me like a book. But sometimes it's just hormones. Hormones. Please. What separates men from monkeys is the ability to control those instincts. You seem like a man, not a monkey. So stop making excuses. Then she paused. Maybe I've said too much. I asked you myself, Boris, she said. Boris ordered another drink and downed it in one gulp. Oh great, now I'm drunk, he muttered. Sorry. Can I ask you something else? If you're so smart and know everything, then tell me, what should I do next? I honestly don't know. Maybe I should learn to control my hormones. Marina replied calmly. I think your young girlfriend will come back to you tomorrow or the next day. What you do with her is your decision, not mine. I'm not a psychologist. You can send her away, or not. She didn't even understand why they were having this conversation. But something about Boris pulled her in. She couldn't just walk away. She had to keep talking, even though deep inside, she feared he might figure out who she was. Then, right at that moment, Boris looked at her closely and asked, Hey, have we met before? It caught her off guard. She had just been thinking about that same fear, being recognized. I don't think so, she said quickly. I feel like I've heard your voice before, Boris said. Maybe he was confusing her with someone else. Marina snapped out of it and stood up. Okay. Well, good luck with your personal life. Have to go now. Maybe we'll see each other again someday. She left the bar and called the elevator. As she waited, her thoughts raced. She realized the only thing that had protected her identity was the fact that Boris was drunk. No, she no longer had doubts. This was Boris. Earlier, she'd wondered if it could be a brother who looked like him. But now she knew for sure. The voice, the expressions, the way he moved. This was no one else. She remembered how Boris used to behave when he drank. He didn't cause scenes, just became more talkative. And now, even after 3 years, nothing had changed. He still jumped from one girl to the next. Today he fought with one, and now he was talking to Marina again. Same man, same habits. Now Marina had to make a decision. Should she reveal the truth to him? Why did he do this to her? If he wanted to leave her for another woman, why not just say so? Why fake his death? Why make her cry, suffer, and grieve for 3 whole years? What a bastard, Marina thought as she entered her hotel room. She didn't even notice how much her feelings had changed. Back on the plane, she'd been shaking with emotion. Now she was calm. She didn't feel the urge to run to Boris and scream, I know who you are. Only one thing still bothered her. Does anyone else from his past know he's alive? What name is he using now? The airport worker hadn't found anyone named Boris on the flight list. She had 2 options. Option 1. Be thankful he's alive. Let it go. Live quietly. Maybe tell her son in a few years that his dad simply left and no one knows where he went. What's worse for a child? Knowing their dad died or feeling abandoned? Marina thought abandonment was easier to process. And one day, maybe she'd meet a new man who could be a real father figure to Daniil. Option 2. Confront Boris. Reveal herself. Deal with the hard conversation. But what if he was already with someone else? What if those old feelings came back and broke her again? Well, she couldn't risk it. It's one thing to mourn a man you thought was dead. It's another to stand in front of someone who chose to lie to you and hurt you. No love could survive that. She still hadn't fully made up her mind. She looked at Daniil sleeping, tucked him in better and sighed deeply. The next day, Marina and her son were getting ready for the beach. The weather had finally cleared up, and they had to hurry to grab sunbeds. This part of the Black Sea beach was reserved for hotel guests, so it wasn't too crowded. But in good weather, spots went fast. Marina stood in front of the mirror, deciding what to wear. She put on a large sun hat and wide sunglasses that covered half her face. She wasn't just hiding from the sun, she was protecting herself. If Boris was staying in the same hotel, an accidental meeting was very likely. Still unsure whether to approach him or not, Marina decided to stay quiet for now. She took Daniil by the hand and they headed to the elevator. It arrived a couple of minutes later. They stepped in. On the next floor, the elevator stopped again. A girl with dyed hair entered. It was her, Boris's new girlfriend. She looked annoyed and wasn't staring at her phone like last time. You have to wait forever for elevators. Then they're always full, the girl complained with a sour expression. This elevator stops on every floor. There are a lot of guests, Marina said calmly. Well, I don't care how long you waited, the girl snapped, giving her a nasty look. Old clothes and that weird hat. Don't talk to me. But Marina wasn't upset at all. She didn't stoop to insults. She simply covered Daniil's ears and stayed quiet until they reached the ground floor. Downstairs, the lobby was full of people. The rude girl quickly disappeared into the crowd, probably on her way to Boris. Once on the beach, Marina realized she had been right again. She'd told Boris his companion would come back, and she had. Even faster than expected. The girlfriend was walking toward Boris, who was busy finding sunbeds. As luck would have it, the only two loungers left were very close to his, just a couple of rows away. If she wanted, Marina could even hear their conversation. She didn't want to ruin the trip for her son. So, hiding behind her disguise, she calmly laid out towels, put on sunscreen and lay down. It didn't take long before drama began. You couldn't find a spot closer to the sea, the girl snapped. These were the closest, Boris replied. To get better ones you have to wake up earlier, not sleep till 11. Oh please. And who was drinking till 2 in the morning? Wasn't that you? I was waiting for you. You left me yesterday. How was I supposed to know you'd come back 2 hours later? She snapped. Well, maybe now you'll learn a lesson, not to take me for granted. You should be afraid of losing me. Boris didn't say anything, but the girl wouldn't stop talking. I'm doing him a favor, she snapped. I forget all the insults. Forget the lies. I even forget when I insulted you. And now this vacation, this cheap hotel. You don't think that's an insult too? Do you know how long I waited for that stupid elevator today? I had to ride with some tired single mom. After hearing that, Marina decided she'd had enough. She took off her hat and lowered her head, hoping to block out their fight. But their voices still reached her sunbed. When will you stop being so angry? Boris asked quietly. And when will you stop being you? The girl shot back. Seriously, who do you think you are? Just look at yourself. Marina raised her head a little and looked at Boris. Now she was curious, who did he look like? But what she saw made her uneasy. Boris looked very pale. His eyes were darting around, and his hands were shaking like he had no control over them. It seemed like he had spent way too much time drinking at the bar the night before. Dasha, I need to lie down, Boris mumbled, then collapsed onto the sunbed. Boria, the girl screamed. What's wrong with you? Help him. The anger disappeared from her face, replaced by fear. Marina saw it clearly. She was genuinely scared. But it wasn't clear if she was afraid of losing someone she loved, or losing the man who paid for everything. Either way, Boris didn't care. The girl, Dasha, just stood there screaming. She didn't do anything helpful. That's when Marina jumped up from her sunbed and ran over to Boris. She checked his breathing and his pulse. He was breathing, but his pulse was weak. Get an umbrella to block the sun, Marina told Dasha. What umbrella? Dasha panicked. She clearly didn't know how to handle emergencies. Okay, just go to the hotel and get a doctor. Now, Marina ordered. The girl ran off. Marina realized she would have to give first aid herself. Everyone else on the beach just watched with curiosity. No one stepped in to help. She bent Boris's leg at the knee, gently rolled him onto his side, and tilted his head back to clear his airway. Then she ran to a nearby sunbed, grabbed a big beach umbrella, and set it up next to Boris to give him some shade. After about 30 seconds, Boris slowly started to wake up. He opened his eyes and saw Marina, this time without her sunglasses or hat. Marina, is that you?" he asked in a weak, slurred voice. "Yes," Marina replied, realizing too late that she had completely forgotten to hide her identity. At that moment, Dasha returned with a hotel doctor. The doctor rushed over to Boris, and Marina quietly stepped back to her own sunbed. She watched as the doctor gave Boris an injection, checked his pulse, and turned to Dasha. "He's okay," the doctor said. "Just a regular fainting spell, probably from heat and exhaustion. He needs to rest in a cool room." "I'll take him," Dasha said, surprised. "I can walk," Boris whispered. He got up slowly and looked around. It seemed like he was trying to find Marina, but she had already put her hat and glasses back on and blended into the crowd. Boris didn't see her. He and his girlfriend returned to the hotel. Marina stayed on the beach, lying quietly. The situation had just gotten more complicated. Now Boris knew she had seen him, but they still hadn't talked. Was he too dizzy to think clearly? Or would he come looking for her? Marina wasn't sure. But one thing she did know, she no longer wanted to see him again. She looked at Daniil, who was sitting nearby on his phone, and thought about how he would react if he saw his father. Most likely, Boris would want to meet his son and maybe even try to be a part of his life again. But after everything that had happened, Marina didn't want Boris back. In fact, she was afraid of it. Especially if he came back with apologies and tried to make things right. Marina was a kind and forgiving woman, yes. But even for her, some things could never be forgiven. And betrayal was one of them. Marina packed her things and went to the hotel cafe to have lunch with her son. But she was too anxious to eat. Every man she saw reminded her of Boris. She took Daniil by the hand and brought him back to their room. As soon as she lay down on the bed, the phone started ringing. It was somewhere in her beach bag and she couldn't find it. Just then, someone knocked on the door. "Wait a second," Marina shouted, still digging through the bag. The phone stopped ringing, but the knocking continued. "What's going on?" "I told you to wait," she said, annoyed, and went to open the door. Standing there was Boris. Marina slammed the door shut immediately. "Marina, wait," Boris called from the hallway. She paused for a few seconds, thinking, then opened the door again. "How did you find me?" she asked. "I asked at reception what room the Spring family was in, and I said your name," Boris replied. "I'm not your wife," Marina said sharply. "I know how you must feel right now, but please, let's talk. I'm asking you. I'm not asking for anything else, just a chance to explain." "Not now. The child will hear. Then maybe tonight. In the hotel bar. At 10. Curiosity got the better of Marina. She nodded slightly. "Okay. Come." She closed the door and sat down, realizing she now had to prepare herself for a conversation she never wanted to have. But how? She was nervous the entire time leading up to the meeting. What would Boris say? Would he lie? Could she believe anything? The only thing Marina told herself was, "Be strong. Don't get emotional. Don't believe anything too easily." That evening, after putting Daniil to bed, Marina went to the bar. She chose a quiet table in the back where the music was faint. She waited. 10 minutes later, Boris walked in. Marina didn't wave or call him, she just sat still. Boris looked around, then spotted her and walked over. "Hi, Marina," he said softly, with guilt in his voice. "We've already seen each other," Marina replied coldly. "Did you order something?" "No. Are you here to drink to make it easier to talk?" "Kind of," Boris said and went to the bar. He came back with 2 cocktails. The doctors already let you drink. I took a non-alcoholic one. And thank you for helping me today. On the beach. If not for you, I don't know if she would have even called a doctor. Why don't you take care of your health? Drinking in the heat, with a hangover. I've stopped paying attention to myself lately. Guess I need to. I'm not 18 anymore. No, you're not. Died a long time ago. And dead people don't need health, Marina replied. Boris sighed deeply. Okay. Talk now. Just, please don't interrupt. Listen. He took a breath and started. 3 years ago, I began getting threats. Our company got in the way of a powerful organization. I had taken out a loan for a new neobank project. The regular banks refused, so I turned to a shady group. They gave us the money, but the contractor we hired ran off and didn't do anything. People said he was seen in Cyprus. Anyway, I went to the lenders and explained, but they didn't care. They gave me a month to return the full amount. We went to the police, but they couldn't help, because everything was unofficial. Then the threats started. Emails, phone calls. I was afraid they'd come to our home and hurt us. I had no way to repay them in time. So I ran. I went to Siberia. After a few weeks there, I was thinking about coming back. But a security guard at the place I was staying told me that a group of guys was asking about me. Strong, athletic-looking guys. I knew they'd found me. There was nowhere safe. Not the train station, not the airport. Not even the holiday home. Panic. I ran into the forest and somehow got a signal. I called Yuri Albertovich, our director. He said you were already trying to find me. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. I told Yuri everything. We came up with a plan to fake my death. We said it happened during a snowmobile trip on Lake Baikal. My co-workers helped. Yuri spread the news. And he came to you. How could you do this? Marina whispered. I was saving my life and maybe yours too, Boris replied. They could have hurt you to get to me. He sipped his drink and went on. Yuri promised he would help you. And he did. I mean, at least in some way. You think a little inheritance money can make up for everything? You think that helped? Marina's voice trembled. I haven't lived for 3 years. You know, this is my first vacation in years, Boris said. I'm sorry, but I had no choice. You should have come with us and gone abroad to hide. Why did you choose the hardest path? These people would have caught you eventually. Especially with all the border checks. I was in such a situation. I had no time to escape. I was trapped. You could have told me everything back then, Marina said. Before it got this bad. I didn't want to put pressure on you. We had a small child. You didn't need more stress. Oh, now you remember we had a child. How many times did you see him in the last year before you died? I was the one left behind. I know. I've been in pain all these 3 years. I miss my son so much. Then how do you do it? Marina asked angrily. How do you just walk away and act like nothing happened? Like you're the victim. I didn't want to burden you, Boris said softly. I thought it was better. I thought you'd be safer without me. If you missed your son so much, why didn't you at least let me know you were alive? I couldn't. It was still too dangerous. I wasn't allowed to come back to the city at all. Even phone calls could have been tapped. And besides, how could I just call you? You thought I was dead. Oh, how noble, Marina scoffed. Leave your wife grieving for 3 years with a baby and disappear. I hoped you'd move on. Forget me. Our relationship wasn't good by then. And whose fault was that? Marina snapped. I admit I'm partly to blame for everything that went wrong between us. And what? You expect me to be happy to see you? To jump into your arms? No, of course not. I really do feel terrible. Okay, then what happened after? For 2 years I kept running. I changed my last name, moved around to different cities. But I never felt settled. Then finally I got good news. The loan company I owed money to was shut down. The bosses, employees, even the thugs, they were all arrested. That's when I came back. I used old contacts to start a small business. It doesn't make much money, but it's enough to live. And did you even think about me? Marina asked coldly. I thought about you. But I was sure you'd forgotten me. I figured there was no past anymore. Boris Krasnov was gone. Now I'm Boris Belov, with a new name, a new job, and a new personal life. You changed your last name from Krasnov to Belov? Marina asked. Yes. It felt symbolic, like a fresh start. Marina laughed bitterly. I sometimes remembered your laugh too. Stop. Please. Don't mock me. Don't act like I'm pretending to be the suffering husband. Oh, you remembered my laugh. What about all those times you left me alone with the baby while you were off on your business trips? Did you remember it then? I told you I was a fool. I admit it now. Great. But your guilt doesn't erase the years I spent alone. Why are you even here? I came to explain everything. And maybe to ask for your forgiveness. So you thought if you told me your sad little story, about being threatened and having no choice, I'd just forgive your betrayal and lies? Boris looked down. He didn't know what to say. He stared into his empty glass and was about to get another drink, but as he stood up, he suddenly sat back down again. What's wrong? Marina asked. Boris didn't answer, but soon Marina saw the problem. A woman walked up to their table. It was Dasha, Boris's current girlfriend. There you are, you bastard, she shouted. I knew you'd be at the bar hitting on women. Dasha, it's not what you think. I was just talking about you actually. Oh please. You don't take care of me. And now you're chasing other women. She turned to Marina. And you? Do you even know he has a kid? I saw you two in the elevator. You're just using him. Dasha, stop it, Boris said. No. Let her talk. Marina interrupted calmly. Go on, say what you came to say. You little. Dasha shouted and tried to grab Marina's hair. But Boris jumped up, pulled Dasha away, and forced her into the chair next to him. Let me go, she screamed. Let me at her. Calm down, Boris shouted. She didn't do anything wrong. She took my man. Dasha yelled. You're right, Marina said with a sly smile. That's why I came here, to steal your perfect, loyal, honest boyfriend. Guys like him are hard to find. You, Dasha shrieked. I'll rip out your hair. Enough, Dasha, Boris yelled. This is my ex-wife. Dasha suddenly froze. The same one you left years ago, she asked. Yes, Marina answered for him with a bitter smile. Oh, I see, Dasha said slowly, realizing Boris had never told her the whole story. And that kid I saw with her? Dasha asked. He's mine, Boris admitted. I lied when I said I didn't have kids. Dasha went quiet. She clearly didn't know how to react. You don't need to worry, Marina said calmly. That child barely knows his father. He's just a biological connection now. Nothing more. I didn't mean to lie, Boris said weakly. How did I not figure this out earlier? Dasha snapped. You're such a jerk. You left your wife and kid, and now you'll leave me the same way. I'm done. I can't look at you anymore. Dasha screamed and stormed out of the bar. Boris ran after her. Marina stayed behind, sitting alone with her half-finished drink. A week ago, she thought this would be a peaceful vacation, her first in years. But after this, she just laughed to herself and thought, what a vacation. Marina felt like she'd need another vacation just to process everything that had happened. So much had gone on, it would take time to fully understand it all. But deep inside she felt relief. First of all, Boris was alive. Yes, he was a liar, a cheater, a traitor, but he was alive. Second, Marina realized that the sad, painful chapter of her life was now over. A new one was beginning. Sure, there would be new problems like how to explain things to Daniil, who would start talking about his dad. But these were everyday problems, not tragedies. Life would be more interesting now. That's why she didn't even react when the angry young woman yelled at her and tried to grab her hair. Marina knew a new chapter had started, and the old one was gone for good, even from her memories. She stood up and walked slowly out of the bar. She needed some fresh air. The hotel courtyard was empty. Most people were either in their rooms or out at restaurants. Breathing in the warm Krasnodar air, Marina suddenly felt free. Her grief had finally ended. She walked into a small nearby park and saw Boris sitting on a bench. "By the look on your face, I guess you didn't catch up with her," she said, sitting down beside her ex-husband. "I did catch up. But I think she left me for good this time. She's already moving her stuff out of the room." "Why did you even want that relationship?" Marina asked. "You two were always arguing. Every night I heard your fights through the walls." "I don't know. Maybe I just liked her youth, her energy. It felt fun," Boris said, waving his hand tiredly. "Listen, I'm not here to scold you," Marina said. "You already know everything about yourself. But tell me honestly, don't you feel sorry for yourself?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, look at your life. You spent all your time chasing money, running from one thing to the next. You even faked your own death. And for what? Now you're sitting here, hungover, broken, abandoned by someone who screamed at you in public. You're not old, Boris, but you've completely lost yourself. What was the point of it all?" "You know," Boris said after a pause, "I've started asking myself that too. But every time I pushed the question away with excuses. Money, freedom, safety. But in my case, none of those things worked out. And this relationship, that was about feeling young again. But now, I'm just lost." "You brought this on yourself," Marina said gently. "But feeling sorry for yourself in this way won't help. Real self-pity should sound like this. Yes, I made mistakes. But I'm strong enough to change, to rebuild my life." She didn't even realize that her anger toward Boris was gone. Sitting next to him, she no longer saw a liar, just a weak, insecure man who didn't seem dangerous anymore. For a moment, she even felt like helping him. That thought scared her. Was this love coming back? No, it wasn't love. It was pity. And pity and love are not the same, though they can feel close. "Thank you," Boris said softly. "For what?" "For not slapping me in the bar and storming off. I really thought you'd do that." Marina smiled, but her curiosity got the better of her. "Weren't you scared to come back to the city? We could have seen you. Daniil could have seen you. I didn't live in the city, just near it, in a gated village. I worked remotely. I only came into the city by car. I changed my appearance and even my last name. It worked. Until that flight. Even then it worked," Marina said, remembering the wide-brimmed hat that had hidden his face. "If it hadn't been for Daniil, I wouldn't have recognized you. He remembered me. I didn't expect that. I thought he'd forgotten everything." Boris sighed. "Marina, I want to see him." "Why? You said yourself, you can't be a real father to him." "I know. But I want to try. Please. You said I could rebuild. Give me the chance." Marina didn't know what to say. Maybe Boris was right. Daniil was still young, not yet a teenager. Maybe now was the right time for a father to return. But she was scared to make that move. She had gotten used to raising him alone. "I don't know. This meeting might be hard for him." "I understand. I'll be careful." "All right," Marina said after thinking. "Let me talk to him first in the morning. I'll tell him about you. Then you two can meet. After that, I'll speak to him again alone. And only if he wants to see you again. We'll figure out what's next." "Okay. Tomorrow, 11 a.m., at the hotel cafe." "Yes. Just remember. Daniil thinks you're a traveler who explored faraway lands. That's your story." "Got it." Marina said goodbye and went back to her room. She tossed and turned all night, unable to sleep. How would the meeting go? How would Daniil react? Would Boris manage to hold it together? Maybe Daniil wouldn't even want to see him. These thoughts kept Marina awake until the alarm rang. She had set it for 10 a.m. to give herself time to get ready and talk to Daniil. "Mom, are we going somewhere today?" he asked, watching her put on makeup. "Yes," Marina said. Do you remember the man on the plane who you said looked like Dad? Yeah, I remember. Well, you were right. That was your dad. Can you believe it? He came back from his journey and showed up right here in Sochi. I knew it, Daniil said, excited. Are we going to see him? Yes. He'll be very happy to see you. And I'll be happy to see him, Daniil smiled. Marina felt relieved. Her son seemed open and curious about his father. That meant the meeting might not be as emotionally heavy as she feared. Where has he been all this time? Daniil asked. He'll tell you himself. At 11 a.m. sharp, Marina and her son left the room. Marina was getting more and more nervous. Maybe it was too late to cancel the meeting. Maybe it would have been better to just leave things the way they were. But there was no turning back now. She had already told Daniil the truth. And if she cancelled the meeting at the last minute, that would hurt her son just as much, something she had always wanted to avoid. Marina and Daniil arrived at the cafe on the hotel's first floor. Boris was already sitting inside. When he saw his ex-wife and son, he stood up and walked toward them. Dad! Daniil shouted happily and ran to him. Hello, my boy, Boris said, hugging his son tightly. Marina greeted Boris quietly, and all three of them sat down at the table. So, tell me how you're doing, Boris asked Daniil. We're having a great time here. This trip with Mom is the best, Daniil said excitedly. And I kept thinking about you the whole time. Marina looked at him surprised. Really, Mom? But I saw you didn't like it when I talked about him, so I stopped. I figured you were just worried about him. I just wondered where you were all this time, Daniil said, turning back to Boris. Well, your mom probably told you a little, Boris said, holding back tears. I was far away and couldn't come back. My job takes me to cities, villages, forests, lakes. Dangerous places. I explore them. It's a tough job. Travelers like me hardly see their families. Then why don't you quit so you can be with me and Mom more? Daniil asked. Well, someone has to do the job. Then let people who have no one do it. No one waiting for them, Daniil replied. That hit Boris hard. He couldn't hold back his emotions anymore. Pretending to take a phone call, he quickly got up and went to the restroom. Yes, sometimes even men need to cry. You see, Danya, Marina said gently, your dad has a very stressful job. Even on vacation, people call him and pull him away. But why does he need a job like that? Daniil asked, upset. Everyone has their own path, Marina answered. Boris returned a few minutes later. Sorry, he said. I needed a quick break. We were just talking about your tough job, Marina said, steering the conversation toward what really mattered. Boris's role in Daniil's life. Yeah, about that, Boris said, hesitating. You know what, Daniil? Quit. I just told them on the phone. Really? Daniil's eyes lit up. So now we can see each other more. Yes, we definitely will, Boris said, looking at Marina. That is, if Mom agrees. Mom, why wouldn't you agree? Daniil asked, surprised. I'm not against it, Marina said softly. Of course not. How often you see each other will depend a lot on your dad. I promise we'll see each other as often as we can, Boris said, putting a hand on his son's shoulder. Then why can't you just come live with us like before? Daniil asked. Boris was silent. He didn't know what to say. He looked at Marina. Trying to help, Marina said gently. Well, Dad has to start fresh. He needs to find a new job and he might not have much time at first. But when things settle down, Daniil interrupted, making both adults feel even more awkward. Then what? What happens next? We'll see, Marina said quietly, avoiding a clear answer. They stayed at the cafe for a long time talking. They chatted about their vacation, the sea, their plans. The morning meeting turned into a full day together. Later they all went to the beach. Boris even started teaching Daniil how to swim. The two connected instantly, like they understood each other without words. Even Marina noticed how much easier it was for Daniil to learn with Boris than with her. She watched and felt a wave of nostalgia. She remembered the early days, when she and Boris first got together, when Daniil was born. It was a sweet feeling, but she quickly shook it off. She couldn't forget what Boris had done. His lies, betrayals, and cruelty. Yes, it was good that he and his son were getting along. But Marina knew she had to keep her distance. She couldn't let herself fall into the same trap again, even if Boris seemed like a changed man. By evening, the three of them walked around the city together. From the outside, they looked like a real, happy family. Later, after it got dark, they returned to the hotel. They said goodbye near the elevator, and Marina and Daniil went to their room. "So, what did you think?" Marina asked. "Did you enjoy your time with Dad?" "I loved it," Daniil said. "I want every day to be like this, with all of us together." "I wish we could," Marina replied. "But we're flying back tomorrow." "Tomorrow? Already?" "Yes," Marina said. With everything that happened with Boris, she had almost forgotten the vacation was ending. "What a shame," Daniil sighed. "But we'll fly back together with Dad, right?" "No," Marina said gently. "He'll fly later. Next time we'll meet him in our city again. Don't worry. This time you won't have to wait so long." "Mom, why can't we live together like before?" the boy asked. "I explained it to you, sweetheart. That's how life is. Sometimes we have to choose things we don't really want," Marina said softly. "Dad had to take that path. But things will still change for us. We'll go on trips like this more often. You'll love it." "Okay," the boy said with a yawn, then went to bed. Marina followed him a few minutes later. But just as she lay down, her phone rang. She quietly stepped out onto the balcony and shut the door so she wouldn't wake her son. "Hello. Marina, is that you?" It was Boris's voice. "Yes. So you still have my number. And you still have mine," she said. "How's Daniil? Did you talk to him?" "Yes. He's happy. That's what matters." "Then, how about another walk tomorrow?" "No, we're flying out tomorrow. I almost forgot. Good thing I had a reminder on my phone." "Oh, that's so soon. I'm not flying for another 3 days. So we won't get to meet again. Only maybe in the morning for a few minutes. But just the two of us," she added. "Daniil said you'll meet again when we're back home. He already has so many new memories today. I think it's better to take things slow." "You're probably right," Boris agreed. "Where should we meet?" "In the courtyard by the hotel park." "Okay. Good night then. And Marina, I've held on to a lot of guilt. But I don't blame you for anything. Weakness isn't a crime. You're strong and wise." After they hung up, Marina stood on the balcony a while, thinking about Daniil and about Boris. He had asked her again why they couldn't just start living together like before. She remembered. He had asked the same thing the night before. Maybe he's right, she thought. Maybe we should try again, if I've forgiven him and we still get along. Then came Boris's message. "What do you think? Can we start over?" Marina was quiet for a few seconds. Then she answered, "No." It was hard to say. A part of her longed for that old family happiness. Her feelings for Boris had returned, but she stopped herself. She remembered the promise she made to herself on the beach. Don't repeat the same mistake. Boris had only been back in her life for a few days. It wasn't enough for something serious. Forgiveness doesn't always mean starting over. Forgiving is one thing. Not letting yourself get hurt again, that's another. Boris didn't argue. He just nodded. "I understand. Honestly, if I were you, I wouldn't have forgiven me at all. So thank you even for that. The most important thing is that your decision doesn't stop me from being a father. I'll come right away after you get home. Just let me know when you arrive. And don't worry, I won't disappear this time." "I hope you don't," Marina said. They both wanted to hug goodbye. But they didn't. Maybe by saying no, Marina had made the hardest choice of her life. But deep inside she felt proud. She had always been a strong, reliable woman, and now she'd proven it to herself. As she turned to go, Boris called after her. Wait, one more thing. Is your no forever? Or, do I still have a chance? We'll see, Marina said, and walked quickly back into the hotel. In the elevator, her eyes filled with tears. But they weren't sad tears. Not at all. These were tears of joy. Joy from something new. A new chapter. In these few vacation days, Marina had learned a lot. How to control her emotions, how to think clearly, how to give her son his father, but not lose herself in old hopes. Only a wise woman can hold such balance. And that's exactly who Marina had become during those warm summer days.